Good morning, children. This presentation is for class 12th Economics students. Hope you all are doing well. In previous two explanations, we have already uploaded them in the website. You can see over there. We are covering the first unit. So today we are taking the last session for this unit. We'll complete it today. Please go through the previous videos very clearly, because in the first one we have already gone for some of the key concepts. Then in the second one we have already taken the related aggregates, the terms which are really required in calculating the national income. So today we are coming to the final part, that is in calculating the national income, what are the ways, in what way the national income is being calculated, right? So national income is calculated on the basis of three methods. There are three methods by which the national income is calculated. The number one, that is product method. It's also termed as value addition method, or we call it the output method even. That is the first one. Name wise, the second one is income method, and the third one is expenditure method. So these are the three methods by which the national income of a country is being calculated. So today we'll go for the detailed understanding or description. Let's go. So you can see on your screen, the very first we have, that is value addition method or product method. So first we'll go for its theoretical part, then we'll check what formula are being used for calculating the national income. So at first, as you can see, there are four steps of calculating the national income by using this value addition method or product method or this output method. The step one, what we do? Step one, the gross value of all the final goods and services is added for the accounting year produced within the domestic territory of a country at market price. So the very first step, what we are doing, we are calculating the gross value of all the final goods and services. The final goods and services which are produced within the domestic territory of the country. So their total value we add up on the accounting year at market price. The very first step, you can see. After that, second step, now we calculate the net value at market price. The first step we have calculated the gross value at market price. Now we'll calculate the net value at market price. Now what is the difference? So what we do, in step 1, the gross value which we have calculated, from that we'll subtract the depreciation. The depreciation is subtracted. So we get the net value at market price. Then third step, now what we do? Now we calculate the net value at factor cost. Second step, we calculated the net value at market price. Now we calculate the net value at factor cost. Now how we do? So for that, in the second step, when we have calculated the net value at market price, from that again the indirect taxes are subtracted. They are subtracted from net value at market price. And finally, to calculate the national income, what we do, the net value at factor cost which we have calculated in step 3, in that what we do, we add the factor income from abroad. The factor income which we are getting in the country from abroad, that is included, that is added in that. So these are the four steps which you have to keep in your mind in calculating the national income by this value addition method. Step 1, gross value of all final goods and services. Step 2, net value at market price. Third one, net value at factor cost. And finally the national income, in which net value at factor cost plus the income which is coming from abroad, factor income which is coming from abroad. So this was the theoretical one. You can turn the page, you can see formula wise we have already written over there that in what way it's being mentioned. The very first step is there, that is gross value added, right? If we go for the mathematical representation of the same theoretical concept, so what way we can write it as gross value added at market price. So how? the gross value of output, whatever the outputs, the goods and services are there at market price, minus the intermediate consumptions. Intermediate consumptions means the consumption we find which were still in the process, which are still not the ready goods. So that has to be subtracted formula wise. Now second one, we can see gross value of output at market price. How we calculate that? Gross value of, they all are interlinked. You can see stepwise we have written them. They all are interlinked. Now gross value of output at market price. How we calculate them? We calculate them by the total sales plus the changes in the stocks. What changes are coming in the stocks? That is now sales. How the sales of company is being calculated, or of the whole nation is calculated. So what we do, we calculate the total output, output sold into the price per unit, right? So that way the sales are being calculated, and what changes are coming in the stock. Okay, in stock, what change? As we have already studied, stock is a static quantity, right? So closing stock minus opening stock, right? From closing stock, if you subtract the opening stock, you get the changes in stock. So this is a way that when you come to the formula wise, so we get these four things by which the national income is being calculated. It would actually help you in understanding it in a good way. Okay. So the first method we have covered, that in what way the national income is calculated by this value addition method. Okay, clear? So let's move further, right? Okay. Now we'll come to the second method presently, that is income method. See, so for this income method, theoretically when we go for that, so basically there are two steps only. You can see on your screen, it's there. So step one, first what we calculate in step one, as it is income method, the previous one was value addition method, the goods and services which are coming in the market, their value we were checking. That's why we were focused on the product. That's why it's known as product method, or we call it output method. Whatever the output from the services or products is coming, that was. This is income method. What income is being generated. So our focus is not on what products are coming, but what income is generated. So this method. So the very first step is there. We calculate the domestic income. Okay. The domestic income, how? That is actually the sum total of all factor incomes within the territory of the country. Okay. So the very first thing is we calculate the domestic income, and that is actually the sum total of the factor income of all the goods and services produced. That is the factor income which we are generating. Second step is what? Then we calculate the national income directly by the domestic income plus the factor income from abroad. The income which we are getting. We are not focused on the value of the products, but what income we are generating. Right? So these are the basic two steps theoretically to understand. We are more focused on the income here. Let's come to its formula wise. We can turn the page. Okay. In this one, what we are finding in income method, the very first thing what we are calculating the net domestic product at factor cost, as we were saying. So formula wise, it's written over there. The first, operating surplus plus compensation of employees plus mixed income of self-employed. So these three things are added. Actually, national income calculation is nothing a question of adding, subtracting, all that. It's plus minus kind of thing only, right? But what has to be added and what has to be subtracted, it's very important to understand, right? So the very first thing what we are calculating, that is NDP at factor cost, that is operating surplus plus compensation of employees, compensation, the income, the money which compensation amount which they are getting, plus mixed income of self-employed. Now same, we go in depth in what with this operating surplus and this compensation of employees. Its subdivision is there, that is national domestic product at factor cost. So we'll come for, at first we go for all the rent, the royalty, the interest, the profit. Right? Because factor income we were covering all those things, in which factor income means actively the people of the country are involved by rent, by interest, by wages, by royalty and all. So the money which they are generating. So rent plus royalty plus interest plus profit, this is added, plus wages and salaries in kind or cash, plus social security contributions by employer. So wages and salaries in kind or cash, whatever the salary or the in kind or cash what they are giving, that one, plus the amount which they are expending on the for the social security contribution by the employers, what money they are giving, that too is added. And finally, plus the mixed income of self-employed, the self-employed, their mixed income is added in that. In this one, formula wise you are saying we are not writing any this factor income from abroad national. When we are calculating that, we are already taking, the citizens who are living outside and working for the country, the money which they are generating, that is already the part of the national income. So the formula wise you can go through that one time, thoroughly check, write it down, understand what points we are covering, so you would be able to understand it in a much better way, right? So we have covered the second method, which is income method. So only two steps are there. Broadly you have to keep in your mind what difference is there in the product method and the income method. In income method are more we are more concerned, or focus is on income, the generation of income, not the sale of the goods and services, but in the income, what income is being generated. Clear? Okay, now we move further. The third method for calculating the national income, that is expenditure method. Now whatever the expenditure is done, okay, the term itself is defining. So let's come to theoretical aspect first again. So it has got again the four steps over there. Number one, to calculate sum total of expenditure on the purchase of final goods and services. The very first term what we do, the total expenditure on the purchase of final goods and services, whatever the expenditure has been done, because when the final goods and services are being made, for that expenditure is being done. So that is based upon the expenditure. That's not the income based, that's not the total value of the products, but it's expenditure for making them, how much money is being used. So the first step is this. Second step, now we calculate the net value at market price. Okay, so the net value of these final goods and services at market price we calculate. How we calculate? That is same, the gross value which we have already calculated in the first step. From that again we subtract the depreciation. More or less, one more thing let me tell you here. You will find that this expenditure method, from one point of view, it looks like value addition method only, because the expenditure which we are doing for making the goods and services, this is a viewpoint of the producer. But the products which are coming in the market, which they are selling, that is again his sale point of view. That was his expenditure point of view. So the two point of views, the same producer is happening over there. In the third step, we move further. In the third step, the net value added at factor cost, that we calculate. How? From that again the indirect taxes are being subtracted. The net value at market price which we calculated, from that the indirect taxes are subtracted. And by this way we get the net value added at factor cost, the same thing which we were doing in the value addition method. And finally, to calculate the national income, what we do, the net value at factor cost plus the net factor income from abroad. So finally the income which is coming from abroad, that is included, okay, that is added to get the national income. So again there are the four steps, but again I'm telling you which has to be kept in mind, because when we'll go for the calculation of the numerical parts, there we have to be very specified. This is again producer's point of view. In value addition method, his that was product method, the product, final products which are going in the market, he's selling them, his sale point of view. Now here his point of view is about the expenditure, for making the final goods and services, the raw material which he is buying, okay, that expenditure, how much he is doing. This point of view is taken for this expenditure method. Let's see the formula wise what way it is being written. It's lengthy actually, you can see. It's first you jot it down, then only you would be able to understand it in a better way. So it's written over there, you can see on the screen. It's first what we calculate, the gross domestic product at market price, right? The very first thing. So for that we have written that's final consumption expenditure plus investment expenditure plus net export expenditure, right? Three things we are taking for gross domestic product market price, okay? The expenditure which we are doing for that thing. So that is final consumption expenditure plus investment expenditure. For making the final goods and services, we are making the investment expenditure, and the net export expenditure. For export, whatever the expenditure we are doing, that is also part of this GDP at MP. And in this one, when we come to its subdivision now, we are coming to its GDP at market price. So at first it is private final consumption expenditure plus government final consumption expenditure plus gross domestic capital formation, that is gross domestic fixed capital formation plus changes in stocks, this one, and plus net export. Net export, how we are calculating, that is by export minus import. From there we are calculating. So this is the formula wise a small closer view of the theoretical explanation which was giving in what way this is being calculated, right? So again you will have to jot it down one time, clearly see what the terms are there, in what way. Once you thoroughly and you will focus upon them, you would be able to understand them in a much better way. Clear? So today what we have discussed, basically we have discussed three methods of calculating the national income. Very first, value addition method, we call it product method or we call it output method. Its theoretical explanation I have given you, and the it's formula wise, that in what way, what formula is being used, what things are added and what are subtracted. Same way we have taken the income method, right? It's a description I gave you, that here we are more focused about the income, second one. And the final one, that is expenditure. For making the final goods and services, whatever the expenditure is being done, that we are more focused upon. So broad understanding you must have that what is the difference in these three methods of calculating the national income, right? Few methods of conversion, which is very very important, because again you can see on your screen we are taking the conversion methods. It's very important, or they must be on your tips, that in what way we are using these terms number of times: gross, net, national, domestic, all these terms we are using. So you can see very clearly it's mentioned over there that from gross, if you subtract the depreciation, okay, you get the net. So the term, it's again a closer view of understanding that whenever the word gross comes and when the word net comes, that means from gross, if the depreciation is subtracted, you get the net. I have written oblique CFC. CFC means consumption of fixed capital. That too, depreciation or the consumption of fixed capital. If that is subtracted, you get the net value. By transposition, we get from in net value, if you add the depreciation, you get the gross. So it's mathematical transposition basically. Number two, you can see that is market price. Okay, so in that market price, what we do, if you subtract the net indirect tax, NIT, so you get the factor cost, right? So from the market price, if you subtract the net indirect taxes, if you're subtracting, you're getting the factor cost. By transposition again, in factor cost, if you add the net indirect taxes, you get the market price. Clear? It's a plain thing. And the third, again the conversion one we are taking, national and domestic. From national, if we subtract the NFIA, what is this NFIA which we have written? That is net factor income from abroad. Net factor income from abroad. So from national one, if the net factor income from abroad is subtracted, you get the domestic one. And in domestic, if you add this net factor income from abroad, you get the national one. It's very simple, right? So it was just a small look that what way the terms are being exchanged, they change, that way. What is added, what has to be subtracted, you can see it one time very clearly. So I think this in this macroeconomics, the first chapter I have already covered. Theoretically, it's explained completely, and for you some small questions I've already sent in here, this WhatsApp group for class 12th D. In fact, class 12th C students can also see this thing. And numerical part will take it slightly later, because there big description or big explanation is required. So perhaps numerical portion will cover in the classes when we'll meet directly in the classrooms. So now what I feel like, it's better to go for the second book, that is about the Indian economy, right? So that portion will cover in the further videos for all of you, right? So keep seeing, go for those questions with the question set which I have already given. We'll post the few more question sets, keep solving them. If you have any difficulty, you can write me on my this WhatsApp group, and in fact from there you can get my personal number. Even if you feel like any query, you can give me a call even, right? So thank you, and hope you all would have gone for this chapter of macroeconomics in a better way. Carry on. Thank you. See you later. Bye.